Hi, everyone. Pastor Galen, lead pastor at Cheyenne Hills Church. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We hope that these podcasts will be a real encouragement to you on your spiritual journey. You can also connect with Cheyenne Hills at CheyenneHills.org. Hope you enjoy the program.
We are across the street and around the world, Cheyenne Hills.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. And Nathan, welcome back. You've been around the state probably many times, talking to people about what's the big election coming up. And do you talk about that, or people probably ask you questions about it?
It's pretty much, for instance, today, all day, it's been call after call. And it's been wonderful because I've made essentially 3 trips, the equivalent of 3 trips around the state just in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the response this year has been overwhelming.
Really?
And very positive.
Well, just so people know, because I don't know when this will be aired, but right now in our time, this is one day, this day after the election. And so we know the results and everything now. And one of the things that I really appreciated with Family Policy Alliance, because people would ask me and I'd say, well, Family Policy Alliance has I think you called it a report card or some kind of, and you gave these candidates a grade based on certain policies and certain principles.
Right.
And that was really helpful for me personally, because but I would actually direct people to that. And I think it was really helpful. I'm sure it's a lot of work, and I appreciate that service.
We worked really hard to be both evidence-based. So for an elected individual, what we were doing was looking at their actual voting record. And so then we judged in 3 different categories: life, religious freedom, and family values issues.
Okay.
And then took a look at their voting record and then just reported that. So we weren't trying to necessarily say, hey, this is the best person in the world. We're just trying to say,
here's how they voted.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then what we did, so we did that and then ranked that on our scorecard, A+ to F.
Right.
And so what we wanted to do is get the best evidence-based material in front of people. And it was probably the most comprehensive report card on life, religious freedom, and family values.
Well, and I did see those the things that you were reporting on. So it wasn't just an A+ on just because you think so. It's based on the principle. Here's on these 5 or 6 things.
We didn't put our thumb on the scale.
Yeah, right. I really appreciated that. How did you deal with the people that haven't, new people that are running? How did you have different questionnaires, or how did that go? Right.
We sent out a questionnaire, and it was very in-depth. And so every person that turned that questionnaire in, we're very thankful for it, because it was about 6 pages long with some pretty hard-hitting questions, and gave them a chance to fill in the oval as to what they believe.
Right.
And then secondly, if they wanted to write out what they believed in further detail, we gave them space to do that.
That's really good.
And so we were able to really engage. Part of that was engagement in things like education policy. And so as we delve into those big issues that sometimes get overlooked in other contexts, here we were trying to really get into the very heart of how they think and what leads them to think that way.
And so when I saw there's a handful that you might have said no comment or something, that means that you sent them a form to fill out, and they just decided not to, right?
That's right. And oftentimes, and people are told this early on, that if it's someone you're going to disagree with, don't send a questionnaire back.
Oh, gotcha.
And so usually that is indicative. Not always, though. Sometimes there are so many questionnaires. I talked to one individual I've known for years, and he called up and he said, hey, Nathan, I don't fill out any questionnaires.
Okay.
Just because I don't want to get involved in all of that too much.
Okay.
And I have some opinions on that, you know.
Yeah.
But because you want to get your information in front of the voter.
I think you have a pretty informed following because I think they're informed that you guys are thorough and you're asking these questions, and people really appreciate it, because who has time to do all that? I mean, I think it's a wonderful service that you have for really the state of Wyoming. So I know you don't want to get into politics of stuff, because it wouldn't be good for your voice to do that. But just was there any surprises in the election, or is there how did you see it in general?
Yeah, so very positively.
Okay.
A number of people who are very strongly pro-life, a number of people who filled out our report card who had never run before, many of them won.
Okay.
And actually, there were a couple of individuals unseated yesterday who were probably on the lowest end of anyone who was in the
Their
legislature.
voting record did not
Right.
pass muster. They were a
Right.
D or an F, maybe, possibly on your scale. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly right.
Wow.
And so, as far as the legislature goes, it was an extraordinary night
Okay.
for life, religious freedom, and family values.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
good
so
to
I
hear
feel
come out
very
of your
positive.
mouth.
Exactly.
You ought to be feeling. You're feeling pretty good
I am.
about.
I'm feeling my oats today.
Yes, you
know?
are. Well, you
And I
have
have to say,
You work
Yeah.
hard to keep us informed and on these issues. So I know it's.
Well, the thing is that we've talked about on this show, things like, and in the past, we have expressed our heartbroken chagrin at the way in which for instance, the House Education Committee operated over the last 2 years.
Okay.
There are two really good individuals on that committee, and both of them won overwhelmingly. One of them didn't even have opposition; the other had very minimal opposition, and so we're thankful for that. But I think the rest of Wyoming became aware of the need for individuals who will actually stand up for choice, educational freedom.
Right.
And so that was very positive.
So you've explained this to me before. There's I think you've said there's 7 or maybe 9 members on this committee, and there's 2 that are really strong that pro school choice, right? And some of them that are pretty strong not. Did some of those that are disfavorable, did they not get elected? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right.
Really? And so will they? How does that happen? How do they restock that committee? Does the Speaker of the House decide who goes?
Right.
How's that work?
So what will happen is after the November election, in the week following, so right now they're already making phone calls, individuals that feel like they may have an opportunity to run for Speaker of the House. They'll already be forming kind of a coalition behind the scenes.
Okay.
Now, there's the possibility for some of them that they may not make it, but
Okay. But people that are interested, they kind of throw their name in the hat and say, I'd like to be considered for this?
Exactly. Normally, if you're going to run for a leadership position, you have some background, and
Okay.
people already see you as a leader of some sort.
In that area.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the Speaker of the House is the one that will make the decision as to what committee a person goes to, who will be on that committee, and begins to build that out, selects the different chairmen of the different committees. And so the Speaker will be working closely with someone that he hopes will be his majority floor leader. Those 2 positions are very, very important.
Really important, yeah.
In the House. And in the Senate, it's the president and the majority floor leader of the Senate.
Okay.
And so they actually are making these decisions. It really comes down to the Speaker, actually. So
so when
very
people
important.
run for an office, they're not thinking, okay, I want to run so I can get on that committee. So that I would guess, maybe I'm wrong, but so once they are on, now there's all these committees, and is each legislator assigned to a committee, or is some of them on 2 committees, for example?
In the Senate, you're on multiple committees
Okay.
just because there's fewer in number.
Okay.
In the House, especially for freshmen, oftentimes you'll only get 1. Now, when I came in as a freshman, I was actually placed on 4 committees. So it doesn't always happen that way. And you can request certain committees.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that you'll get them.
Okay. So I'm asking all these questions to see if it's legit, and I think it's legit in my own heart. I think I can actually say this, but I'd really like to be praying that there are favorable people on this one particular committee that's open to school choice.
That's
I
right.
think it's important, and so I'm glad to hear you explain how this process happens. That's good.
So that's the reason why, there's an old adage, a famous pastor from time past used to make the statement that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yeah.
And so even as you get into the legislative context, you can have a number of really good individuals who have just been elected, but they also can be almost sidelined by leadership that puts them on committees where their voice is essentially nullified. And that's exactly what happened with those 2 really wonderful freshman individuals who were placed on the Education Committee. They were fighting hard for good principles, but they had been essentially marginalized by the others who were very liberal on that committee.
Okay, interesting. Wow. Well, there was the big race with Hageman and Cheney, and I don't know if you want to comment on that or not. But I guess for me personally, I personally was surprised at the margin of difference of Hageman winning. I don't know if I thought it would be a really close race. Actually.
One of the most amazing things I found out. So you are now an international superstar.
Yeah, well,
you were on Fox News.
This was crazy.
And so, on this race,
I knew it was Fox. I thought it was a local, Fox 31 out of Denver or something, and they ask all kinds of questions, and I was trying to not be political. I didn't want to answer it, but it's still. I thought, well, it's no one, but. Then my mom sent me a link and said, I saw you on Fox News. I was going, what? And so and I said, that Fox 31 out of Denver? And she goes, no, it's on national news. So yeah, I had 10 seconds that I 10 seconds of fame right there. Nathan.
My goodness, you had your cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
You looked like Wyoming, man.
Yeah, well, that's, we were out at the rodeo and I was standing in line to get some water, bottled water. And they said, hey, could you answer a few questions for us? And I said, well, no, I really don't, because they said they were from Fox. And they finally talked me into it. Really nice. I mean, really engaging. There was a guy, a gal, and then the cameraman, and they were just asking all kinds of questions about the rodeo and who I was. And then they kept asking. I said, well, I'm not a real cowboy. I'm a weekend warrior, kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I just have the hat. I don't,
Well, you do roping and stuff.
Well, I do, but not to the level that there's the guys out in those rodeos. They're big time. But I did say, I told him I was a pastor and, just very open. And the way they handled what I had said is like, well, they reported the principles that I valued, and I appreciated that.
That's good.
Yeah, it was kind of
that's good. Well, yeah, that was a big race. People were looking at. I got a.
Well, that's why they were here, I'm sure. Right?
Exactly. That's a huge race.
Yeah,
I think the world was watching.
Yeah.
So I had actually French media and English media, a group of individuals from Great Britain, had reached out to ask for my comment in my involvement in one of the parties. And as a result of that, and obviously there were too many things going on for me to feel like I could comment too much.
Yeah.
But it really did come home to me just how many people were watching this race. It's very important.
Yeah.
And what's amazing, though, is how family policy wound up becoming a very crucial piece of the conversation in this race.
For sure.
So when it comes to voting for legislation, sadly, our current sitting congressman, she voted along with, I think, 45 other Republicans, to essentially overturn historic marriage. But in so doing, that's the kind of legislation eventually that could be used against the church directly because we follow a biblical worldview.
Right.
And so it breaks my heart how right at the tail end, even on crucial things to deal with genuine freedom, that became part of this race. And so,
yeah, there was probably a lot of things they were asking me, trying to get me to comment on the January 6th, and it's like I did not want to touch that one, but I just said, one of the things I feel like is that we've kind of, I think she probably has her eyes on different prizes and not so much on Wyoming. So I think some of those feelings started way before January 6th, in my opinion. And I didn't really want to comment on that. But anyway, it was an interesting experience for sure.
Well, you're hitting right on something that we've tried to reiterate over and over again on this Wednesday broadcast, that what we're looking at is really the importance of making decisions based upon principles, not personalities.
Exactly.
And I believe what's happened over the last year and a half, 2 years, has really revolved around personalities.
Yeah.
And so, again, we have to focus again and again, especially as a Christian group of people, that there are eternal principles that were established before the foundation of the earth.
Yeah.
That we have to continue to make our decisions based on.
Right. Well, and that's, to be honest with you, that's the thing that I don't know how to, from a pastor lens, I always look at principles, because principles are what can be based in truth.
Exactly.
Not personality.
Right.
And if we go on personality or even personal vendetta, I think there's a lot of personal politics and dislike of each other and all these things. It's like, well, okay, this person likes this person or doesn't like this person because they said this or whatever it may be. It's like, I don't want to get down in those weeds. I want to get into the only thing I can say is kind of what you guys are asking. What do you believe on principle about the truth of God's word, truth of family, truth of the issues that matter? I think can really back up biblically. Those are the ones that really matter to me.
Right.
And and whether it's personality and some of all the other things that are the window dressing around it, that's I don't know. That's how I see things, but I don't know. It doesn't make it easy. I know sometimes it's really difficult to sort through those things.
Well, I think there's right now a lot of attention being played on these issues, and that's why I'm so thankful that we as folks who care very much about public policy, but see the whole world through the lens of objective truth.
Yeah.
I think that it's a wonderful thing to be able to watch as people from across the state. So this morning I've made, I don't know, more than a dozen, maybe a couple dozen phone calls to different people across the state who have won different races, and talk to them about coming together as in our Family Policy Allies Summit and talk about major issues. So we're going to be partnering with Alliance Defending Freedom to talk about different things in the month of September. And I really believe a lot of people who care about these very important issues are, they're coming together to talk about this. And so we're glad to be on the forefront of that conversation.
That's wonderful. And it's to help lay some groundwork of here's some of the things you're going to be facing.
Right.
I'm sure they know most of it, but a nuance from your lens and be able to speak very openly about principles and values. That's awesome.
Well, and that's kind of looking at what we can do, but also looking a little bit defensively. There have been individuals saying a lot of really sad things in our culture for some time. Yeah. So 11 days after that meeting, we're going to have a meeting just for pastors.
Oh.
And we're bringing in a lawyer.
I haven't gotten my invite yet.
Not yet. So that's one of the things where I have our staff working on right now.
Okay, good.
But it'll be in September 17th, I believe it is, in Laramie. And so that evening, we're bringing in a world-class lawyer to talk about how churches need to be prepared in their constitution in different ways, how we handle issues to make sure that churches are protected. Yeah. And then the following day, we're going to be talking about education.
Perfect.
And so there's a lot of things that we're working on.
Thanks for leading the charge. That's awesome.
Amen.
Those are the things that matter to, keeps me out of jail, which I appreciate you doing that. And actually maybe propels our school forward and what we're doing here at Shine Hills Christian Academy.
Absolutely.
So you had some other things you're noodling around there on your computer, and you say, do we have time to talk about some of those?
Well,
things?
yeah. I mean, there's some of it I think that would take an entire broadcast to really walk through. But I would say that as far as the election goes, as we look through the future, what it's going to take, you cannot change your culture based on one election alone.
For sure.
First of all, we have wonderful individuals. And I reminded an individual who just won their election for the first time today that what they've just done is they haven't won anything. They've only won the right to sit at the table and have the conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
And so this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's not even the end of the beginning. It's still the very beginning. Right. And so what we have to do from here on in is continue building a coalition of people who will stand for truth regardless of the personal consequences, and who will set out to become genuine statesmen. And then we as citizens need to begin to back them up and encourage them and let them know why they were elected. Wow. And so this is just the beginning of things.
Well, no kidding. Because we've talked about that too. People get elected and then all kinds of very intellectual people with very nuanced ideas can sway people.
That's right.
It's like, wow, I ended up over here when I didn't think I would ever be there. How many politicians end up in a different place than they were even 10 years ago?
Right.
And so you're right, to have those foundational fundamentals in place is, it's essential, and I'm glad you're there to do that.
Amen.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, and I'm glad you're smiling. It's always nice when you're smiling you're smiling all the time, but I could tell this was a little spring in your step to say, pretty good day yesterday.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
It was a good day.
Well, we say this all the time. I know that you're doing this, but continue to be strong and very courageous. God bless you guys.